Welcome to Reddy Technologies. Manual testing versus automation testing. Say in this video, I am going to explain advantages of manual testing, next disadvantages of manual testing, advantages of automated testing or automation testing, next drawbacks of automation testing. First, advantages of manual testing. Say, I think all of you know that software testing can be done in two ways. One is manual testing, another is automated testing. Some types of testing can be done in both the ways. For example, functional testing. Functional testing can be done in manually as well as automation. Next, some test types, only some testing types are only possible in manual testing. For example, usability testing. Say, test tools can't judge look and feel aspects. Manually, we can test usability aspects. Suppose some test types, for some testing types, manual testing is impractical. For example, performance testing. For performance testing, we can't arrange and organize hundreds of computers, hundreds of testers, and we can't organize. If it is automated testing or automation testing, we can create thousands of virtual users and apply the load. See, advantage of manual testing. First one, no environment limitations. Irrespective of the AUT, application under test, irrespective of the AUT environment, we can use manual testing process. If it is test automation, so many environment limitations. For example, UFT, formerly QTP, UFT doesn't support Linux operating environment. Suppose our application under test, our testing application installed on Linux environment, then we can't use UFT. UFT supports Microsoft Windows environment only. Next, Selenium. Selenium supports both Windows and Linux and Macintosh environments, but Selenium doesn't support desktop application testing, only web application testing. These are the environment limitations for testing tools. If it is manual testing, no environment limitations. If you know the operating knowledge, you can operate Windows-based application or Unix-based application. Okay. Next, programming knowledge is not required. In the manual testing process, understanding requirements, documenting test cases, executing test cases are the important tasks, but programming knowledge is not required. Just thinking, reasoning, documentation, execution, and reporting. If it is automation, especially for functional automation, functional test automation, every tool uses any one programming language to enhance test cases or to write automation test cases. So programming knowledge is mandatory for automation testing. Next, I already explained indirectly, recommendable for usability testing. See, test tools can't judge look and feel aspects of the application. Only human user can judge. So usability testing is impractical in automation testing. Manual testing is the only solution. Next, manual testing allows for human observation, which may be more useful to find potential defects. See, in manual testing, users or testers interact more with the application under test. Then it is easy to find defects, and the tester can provide suggestions to the development team. See, these are the important advantage of manual testing. Next, when it comes to drawbacks of manual testing, first one, manual testing requires more time or more resources. Resources in the sense environmental resources and human resources. Sometimes both time and resources. Say, covering all areas of the application requires more tests. Creating all possible test cases and executing test cases takes execution of test cases takes more time. If it is automation testing, the test tool can execute tests quickly. Next, less accuracy. Human users may make mistakes, or may not make mistakes, but possibility is there. Human users may make mistakes. So we cannot expect more accuracy in manual testing. If it is automation testing, if you provide correct logic, then the tool can provide correct output every time. Next, performance testing is impractical in manual testing. Organizing thousands of machines means computers. Organizing thousands of computers and human users, testers, is impractical. If it is automation testing, we can create thousands of virtual users, and using 3 or 4 computers, we can apply the thousands of users load and test the performance of the application. Famous test tools in this area: Apache JMeter, Micro Focus Load Runner. Next, fourth one, comparing a large amount of data is impractical in manual testing. Comparing two databases that have thousands of records is impractical, but if it is very easy in test automation. Next, processing change requests during software maintenance takes more time. Next, batch testing. Batch testing is possible, but human user interaction is mandatory for each test case execution. Say, batch testing means executing series of tests. In batch testing, for every test case execution, user or tester interaction is mandatory in manual testing. If it is automation testing, test tool can execute series of tests without human user interaction. Next, GUI objects size differences and color combinations, etc., are not easy to find in manual testing. Next, manual test case scope is very less. Is automation test case, then the scope is more. In manual testing, the test case scope is very limited. Why? Why? Because the tester can concentrate on one or more verification points only, 1 or 2 verification points only. If it is automation test, the test tool is software. The test tool can concentrate on multiple verification points at a time. Say we can insert multiple conditions, multiple loop statements in your automation tests. Next, ninth one, executing the same tests again and again, time taking process as well as tedious. See, sometimes we need to execute the same tests using multiple sets of test data. Example, data driven tests. For each test iteration, user means tester interaction is mandatory in manual testing. In automation testing, using test data file, Excel file or database file, we can easily conduct data-driven testing. Next, 10th one, for every release, you must rerun the same set of tests, which can be tiresome. Say, we need to execute sanity test cases and regression test cases on every modified build in manual testing. It takes more time. In automation testing, once we create tests, then tool can execute tests multiple times quickly. Next, advantage of automation testing or automated testing. One is fast. Fast. Tools are faster in test execution than human users, means software testers. See, in software testing, two important tasks. One is test design, another is test execution. Say, in test design, no time saving in automation testing. It may take more time than manual testing also sometimes. Say, only testers generate tests, scripts. See, test tools provide necessary environment, maybe necessary environment. Suppose test tool IDE features, recording, inserting checkpoints, etc. Or using programming features, control flow statements, functions, methods. User can, means tester can design tests. Say, in case of test design, we can't save the time in automation testing. Why? For test design, tester interaction is mandatory. But for test execution, we can save the time in automation testing. Test tool can execute tests, single test or series of tests quickly than human users. Test design is one-time activity, but okay, sometimes we may edit our test cases, but most of the time, test design is one-time activity. But we have to execute tests multiple times. Uh, See, sanity tests and regression tests on every modified build. So we can save the time in automation. See, sanity tests and regression tests can be executed multiple times. See, conclusion. Uh, in case of test execution, we can save the time in automation testing. That is fast. Next, reusable tests or test scripts can be reused on different versions of software easily. Example, sanity test, regression tests. If it is manual testing, tester or user interaction is mandatory for every test iteration. Next, third one, repeatable. Tests can be repeated with multiple sets, multiple values, with multiple sets of test data without user interaction. Example, data-driven tests. Next, accuracy and reliable. Accuracy or reliable. If the testers provide the correct logic, then the tool can execute tests correctly. In case of manual testing, human users may make mistakes. For example, in case of complex test execution. But if you provide correct logic, if you provide proper logic, tool can execute tests correctly every time. Next, programmable. Programmable. Say, programming concepts, variables, operators, conditional statements, loop statements, functions or methods, exception handling, etc. can be used for enhancing automation tests. See, computer programming allows us to work with different types of files and databases of testing activities. Example, data-driven testing, generating test reports, etc. Testers can apply programming logic to test cases or tests or test scripts So they have the facility to insert multiple verification points in a test. A small note, if it is manual testing, human user can concentrate on one or two verification points only. Uh, Next, if it is automation testing, tool can execute multiple verification points at a time. Why? Tool is software. Software can concentrate on multiple verification points at a time. Next, comprehensive completeness. Test tool supports batch testing. Batch testing means executing series of tests. Next, series of tests can be executed without human user interaction in automation testing. If it is manual testing, human user means tester interaction is required for every test iteration. Next, come to drawbacks of automation testing. See, one is sorry, test automation requires a lot of effort at the initial stage. See, in software testing, we already discussed two important tasks. One is test design, another is test execution. For test design, tester interaction is mandatory. Testers only create test scripts using test tool features and programming features. It takes more time than manual test case design. Next, 100% test automation or automation testing is impractical. Say, generally, we try to automate maximum test cases, not all test cases. For some tests, human user observation is required. For some test cases, human user observation may be required. See, due to some environment limitations, we can't automate all testable requirements. Okay. Next, all types of testing is impractical. Say, we can automate functional tests, performance tests, but not possible to automate tests that verify the user friendliness of the system, usability tests. Next, fourth one, debugging issues. Say, we use programming syntax and logic to write automation tests. Sometimes locating errors in test scripts may be difficult. Next, tools may have their own defects. See, test tool also a software. It may have its own defects in it, so that we may not achieve desired benefits. Next, programming knowledge is required. See, every test tool, especially functional test tools like Selenium, UFT, RFT, test complete, test partner, Watir, etc. Every test tool uses any one of the programming languages. Next, any one of the programming languages to write test cases or test scripts. So, in order to create and edit test scripts, programming knowledge is required. In manual testing, no programming knowledge is required. Next, test tools have environment limitations. Test tools have some compatibility issues with operating systems, browsers, etc. Example, UFT, formerly QTP supports Windows operating environment only, doesn't support other operating environments like Unix and Macintosh. Selenium supports web application testing only, doesn't support desktop or you can say Windows based applications. For manual testing, no environment limitations. We can test computer software or mobile software on any operating environment and any browser. Next, Last one. This is only the last but important one. 8. Not suitable for dynamically changing UI designs, user interface designs. Most of the test tools support test automation based on front-end objects. If user interface design changes dynamically, then it is difficult to automate. This is about manual testing versus automation testing.